Happy Wednesday morning. Thanks for joining us. My name's Josh Knutson. I'm the Gravity Gaming Solutions Director here at ByteSpeed. I'm going to be serving just kind of as your moderator, MC, kind of background support for Lucas, our CTO, who's going to do the majority of the presenting today. Just a couple of housekeeping things. Today's webinar is being recorded. You can check our YouTube channel usually a day after, and we'll have the recording posted if you want to refer back to this. The chat and Q&A functions are both live, so please feel free to dump your questions, comments in those as we go through. I'll be watching both of those to make sure that if something pops up, we can have Lucas answer those as we're going. There's also a poll running right now that we'd love for you guys to take a look at. Lucas, you might need to relaunch it, or I don't know if there's a way to.
Yeah,
There
I
we
think
go.
I just did it.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you guys want to fill out that quick 2-question poll, that'll help us kind of with the direction to take the back half of this webinar. And yeah, just if anything pops up, let us know. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Lucas. Thanks for being here, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Yeah, and the poll is mainly just so I know how nerdy I can talk, I guess, to see how many of you are new to Office 365 and just kind of Microsoft's modern management cloud management system. So looks like we do have a varying audience here. So I'll keep it a little higher level on the front half of this and then get a little more detailed on the back half. And as Josh said, I'm Lucas Holney. I'm the CTO at ByteSpeed here, and I've been with the company for just over 20 years now. And one of the many hats I wear is leading a lot of our service teams and working with Microsoft products, and that's licensing to cloud services to doing migrations, things like that. So anything that's Microsoft, in the cloud for sure, I definitely have my hands in, and love to help you guys out with anything. But just a couple of quick ByteSpeed slides. If you guys aren't familiar with us, we've been around since 1999. Primarily, we've been building custom hardware. So we make our own desktops, our own servers. It's our branded equipment. We sell, support, service, do everything from the start to finish on that. And that's been, since the beginning of ByteSpeed till now. And I'd say in the last 5-7 years, we've started diversifying into other strategic partnerships. Selling networking infrastructure, doing more services, whether that's professional services or managed services. Really started kind of expanding what we're offering. We're nationwide in all 50 states. Likely we have a contract in the state that you're in, or a purchasing method if you aren't working directly with the sales team. And just different ways that we can help your organization, just, aside from getting you devices. We can do consulting, be flexible procurement, configuration for devices. So like one of the things we'll do with our ByteSpeed branded product is have the devices set up as it can be before you get it, so it's easier to deploy. So that could be imaging, asset tagging, bulk packaging, just anything that we can do in that aspect. We now have a full installation team. So if you have network projects that require an on-site presence and installation, we can provide that. And then everything we do is based in the United States. Our headquarters is in Moorhead, Minnesota, and we have a few outlying employees here and there, but for the most part, we're up here in Minnesota. So I am not a huge PowerPoint guy, so I'm going to run through a little bit of a PowerPoint here, then kind of get into more like a hands-on demo so you guys can kind of see some different things, and that might spur up some more questions. But I made this entire presentation with AI. I didn't do a single thing other than the ByteSpeed slides you saw at the beginning here. So everything from here on out, it's AI generated with Copilot, and There's some interesting things it did, and I didn't touch anything. So the first, thing you see is a picture of a cat on a laptop. So that's going to jump us into like what our main goal here today is, just talking about modernizing your Windows devices and some key steps there and how all that ties together from the device level all the way up to managing devices through the cloud. So that with the agenda, just the high level things we'll touch on is doing that Windows upgrade from Windows 10 to Windows 11, modernizing management with Entra ID, device management with Intune, security with Defender for Endpoint, and then some just best practices, and that's probably when we'll start answering most of the questions. So with Windows 10, as everybody probably knows by now, end of support is coming this October. So we have 6 months or so to get everything moved on to Windows 11. And really, if you still have devices out there running 10, likely it's because they haven't been replaced in a long time, and they maybe don't meet the hardware requirements. Any new device that you guys have bought, in the last for probably 5 years should have Windows 11 pre-installed on it. And anything prior to that can kind of be iffy. With ByteSpeed product, 2017, 2018 was kind of around that cutoff where we were loading Windows 11 pretty much all the time. So that's what we have for well, I guess we'll talk about the requirements on the next slide. Sorry. So Windows 11, a lot of the improvements, this is just showing 4 of those improvements, and then mostly end user based, like gaming, a new interface, better performance. Those things are important, but as an IT manager, not really on your radar. Secure system requirements and compatibility checks. So this is where you really need to look at your devices. So the big one is CPU requirements. The biggest one is when Intel 8th gen or newer processors are going to support Windows 11, and the 7th generation or older won't. So that's going to be the Intel 8400, i5 8400, i7 8700, that series of CPU and newer, you're good to go. You might have to make some BIOS tweaks, and that's kind of where the top 2 requirements come in, TPM and Secure Boot. Those do have to be enabled in the BIOS, and that could require you to physically touch every machine when you're going through that upgrade to get those features turned on. TPM 2.0 can be handled 2 different ways. You can have a discrete TPM chip that's installed on the device. Different like all-in-one devices, smaller. It could be an IoT device or a self-contained device will typically have their own TPM chips. Laptops, desktops can kind of be a little iffy on that. Typically, they won't have a discrete TPM installed, and you can use what's called firmware TPM, and that's built onto the processor. So it's just a little bit of a different enablement in the BIOS to where which one you need to turn on if it's not on. And then Secure Boot's a feature in the BIOS too that protects your Windows bootloader from being affected or taken over by a virus or malware. But all 3 of those things are the big keys there, is knowing what you have and what you need to do to get it to take Windows 11. There are some options here, especially if you're a school district, which we do have some K-12 people here. If upgrading those devices just isn't going to be in the budget this year, Microsoft does have extended support updates that you can subscribe to. And In the EDU market, those licenses are, I think they're like $1 for the first year, $2 for the second year. So there are options if you just can't get those devices upgraded to 11 to keep them running with 10. It's just going to be a little of a, not a challenge, but a few steps to get there. You'll have to update the product key on the devices so it knows that it's on that servicing channel and that it'll continue to get updates. Outside of education, the same extended support updates are available, but they're just more expensive. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact price. It might be $60 for the first year, $90 for the second year, $120 for the third year. They're going to do it for 3 years. So there are some options if it's just a deal breaker that you can't get the devices replaced or upgraded. Talking about the upgrade process, there are a few different things that you can do if you don't have a higher level patch management system like WSUS, or you're using an RMM like Ninja One or ConnectWise, things like that. If you're just using normal Windows Update, it's been probably bugging you for a year now that, hey, Windows 11 is available, please update it. Or you can maybe snooze it for a little bit, but it's always going to be there asking you to update it. So that's just the first process, just the normal Windows Update method, just allowing users to update through that method. It'll do a little compatibility check, or maybe it's already done that. Another option, if you're on a larger scale, you can update through just the normal Windows ISO. So if you just go to Google and type in Windows 11 ISO, Microsoft has that publicly published. So you can download that ISO and then just open it on the computer you want to upgrade, run setup.exe, and it'll just go through an upgrade process. You can also mount those files from the ISO on a network share and run upgrades that way to your devices. That way you don't have to possibly be at each machine to touch it. And then the third way is, yeah, if you do have that upper level management system, maybe you're already using Intune, you can start to get those updates pushed down to the clients and run through the upgrade that way. You can wipe and reload too. Microsoft is still honoring free Windows 10 to Windows 11 upgrades. So if you have Windows 10 running, the product key for that should be flashed in the BIOS if it's just a normal Tier 1, Tier 2 manufacturer. And that Windows 10 product key will activate Windows 11. So you can do wipe and reloads. You just have to be careful with the image that you're using and where you got the files from. If you got them from the normal Windows 11 ISO, all of the different versions are in there. If you've been using WSUS or MDT or some other image deployment option, it's possible it could have taken some of those indexes out of the image file, and you might only be able to update Windows Pro devices with that and not Windows EDU, for example. And then after the upgrade, it's also important to just make sure things are running smoothly. If it's actively used devices and people are using as daily drivers, you want to just coordinate that with them, make sure things are running good afterwards. Software, Microsoft says that 99% plus compatibility with software that's running in Windows 10. There are some outliers out there, so you maybe want to handhold those really important devices just to make sure that software is going to work with Windows 11, or test that outside of the device on a system that you can install it and wipe and reload it just to make sure it works. But for the most part, I can't say I've come across anything that really has an issue. So you should be pretty safe there.
Lucas, before we move on, just two quick things that have popped up. Just a clarification on the Windows 10 support extension. There's an EDU version and a non-EDU version. The difference is just the price.
It's all the extended service, extended support updates, ESU. Uh, yeah, it's the same thing on both sides. Just EDU is going to have a discount, and the commercial side won't. They haven't so these aren't going to be available till November. So you're not going to be able to buy them, I think, until November 1st at the earliest. And they haven't officially released any SKUs with pricing attached to them. I have had people at Microsoft verify that it's coming out, and it should look like that. They've published blog posts out there indicating this as well, but nothing has been actually released yet. So there's still a chance something could change or not come out the way we think it's going to. So just kind of have to watch for updates on that. But yes, that's something that we will be able to provide. And if you're familiar with how Microsoft manages licenses now, the volume licensing service center is gone. Everything's through the Microsoft Admin Center now, and these licenses would be delivered that same route. So you order it from a cloud solution provider like ByteSpeed, and they would get delivered to your Microsoft tenant or Office 365, Microsoft 365, that account you have for your organization, and it'll show up under your products there. You'll have, if you bought 50 extended support update devices, I don't know if it's going to give you 50 different product keys or if it's going to be one product key, but you'll have to update the key on the devices themselves. There is a command line option to upgrade the key. So if you do have remote access or the ability to run scripts or commands against machines on your network, you'll be able to do it that way. That's kind of I guess the full story with that. So
Awesome. And then on the hardware side of things, beyond just like the requirements to upgrade to Windows 11, is there any other kind of quirks or things to look out for on older hardware when you do this upgrade? There's just one question on some of the
yeah.
older stuff, if it's going to be picky or anything like that.
Um, I haven't run across too much. It's mostly going to be picky on the extra the additional features that you can use with Windows. Like if you have a laptop that has a fingerprint reader, an integrated web camera, you're using biometrics. That's where it can get a little bit picky if that hardware is older and the driver isn't the manufacturer maybe never released a driver for Windows 11, or it's just, it doesn't have the ability, Windows 11 can't take advantage of the hardware of the device. That's where you can kind of see a little bit of a quirkiness. Webcams, fingerprint readers, SD card readers, just those little additions like that. If it's just a standard regular desktop computer, nothing fancy about it, there's not really going to be anything you have to worry about. It's just those little additional things. Windows 11 will come with, Hello for Business will use biometrics in your camera for like facial recognition. So there's things that hardware has to support. Trying to think what else in there. Handwriting recognition if it's a touch screen. Windows 11 will have requirements of the device to be able to use those extra features. And I guess that's where you could run into some, like, it may not work as well as it did with 10. And you maybe want to use, if you have a lot of those devices deployed out there, grabbing one or two and just running through it to see what you're going to have to deal with.
Super. Yeah, that's all the questions we got so
Yeah.
far. Thanks, Lucas.
Yeah. Yeah, and the big part too, if you have a larger network, just knowing, where all these devices are, how many Windows 10 devices do you have out there, and that's just part of your security posture, your asset management. But once October hits and November comes around and there's no security updates launched, typically hackers are sitting on vulnerabilities and they're just kind of waiting to exploit them. So It's really good to take that inventory and make sure that you have everything accounted for, and you have a path that you're going to follow to get that device upgraded or updated. So the next part really comes with modern management. So all this will still work with Windows 10. Everything I'm talking about here afterwards, but Windows 11 is going to be better, obviously. But I really think about this like a pyramid. Um, the pyramid starts with a good base. You need to have a good solid base, and then everything above that needs to have something completed below it, and it all kind of flows through to the top. If you have inconsistent data, a lot of noise in the base of your pyramid, the top is going to be really wobbly and maybe unstable, and you'll be fighting with it a lot. So the base is really your identities and your devices. And that they can exist in two places, right? So you might have an on-premise Active Directory, and your devices and user objects live inside your domain controller. If you have a lot of accounts or objects that are old that aren't being used anymore, it's really going to add a lot of noise when you get into the 365 and other Microsoft cloud services. So starting with a good base is important. Cleaning up those users, clean up those device objects in Active Directory, and prepare for the cloud if you're going to be moving that to the cloud. So Entra ID is Microsoft's Active Directory in the cloud is the best way to explain it. That's the system that's going to be managing your user identities, your device objects, your access to resources in the cloud. Everything runs through there. So, applications is another one. If you have enterprise applications, if you're using Microsoft as an identity source to sign into other websites, other services, you'll be adding those applications in there and allowing that. The last bullet point here, they have secure interactions. So again, yeah, making sure the access that's coming in, the request to get into services, look at data is actually the person that they say they are. So that's the important part of Entra. With Active Directory, it's really becoming not obsolete, but archaic is maybe a good term to put it. That the structure and the management of that really hasn't changed in a long time. Anything that you add in or you want to do extra needs to be a third-party utility or tool that you're adding on top of Active Directory. And you really don't get the insight that you get with Entra. And I'll show some examples of that in a little bit, but you really get a better sense of what's going on, where the user's logging in from, when they're logging in, what they're logging into, versus Active Directory, where unless you're using PowerShell commands to pull that stuff out of Active Directory, you're not getting that kind of insight. So you are able to sync Active Directory to Entra. That's through a tool called Entra AD Connect. And that's really where, yeah, you set up what you want to sync and the different features you're going to use. So there will be an express settings that you can use with Entra AD Connect. I'd recommend not doing that. That's just going to sync your whole AD structure up to Entra. So all the users, all the devices, all the OUs. I'd recommend doing a custom one where you're specifying which OU that you want to sync. You do want to leave, it's smart to leave some OUs not syncing just in case you need to have local only users. Again, it just creates less noise up in the cloud to only be syncing the things that you're going to be using. So And if you don't sync Active Directory to the cloud, you can join machines to Entra, and that's called Entra AD joined. So that's kind of the replacement for Active Directory and your domain controller. So instead of joining devices to your local domain, you'll just join them to Entra ID. So especially if you're looking at getting rid of your domain controllers or you've never had one to start, you're a smaller organization, Entra ID is what'll be where you're joining the device to, and it's managing the user account and that device. So, and again, I'll give you guys kind of more of a visual of how that looks. And I kind of touched on some of these benefits already, but really the benefit is just the amount of data that you're able to see for what's happening and how you can easily control it versus what you can get with Active Directory, which also, yeah, it improves security. We talked about the integration. Again, I got to thank AI for this slideshow. Yeah, security and integration are kind of the big pieces of it all. So that's kind of the base of the pyramid. Moving up into the next step is Intune. So Intune is Microsoft's device management platform, and that is going to replace like your group policy objects. So on your domain controllers, if you're using GPOs, those are the policies that are controlling settings on the device. You might be locking the taskbar for, if you're a school district for students, you might be locking the desktop background. You might be, blocking access to the network or websites. There's a plethora of things you can do, obviously. And all those policies can be done with Intune. If you're running in a hybrid model, so if you're syncing your Active Directory to Entra, your group policy objects will always take precedence. If you have the same setting in both areas, GPOs will always take that precedence. If you're, Entra ID join machines, you're skipping your Active Directory, everything has to come from Intune. And again, we'll show this a little bit later in a little bit of a demo, but that's their MDM platform. So it'll handle all your Windows devices that you would, typically do with your domain, but it'll also do your mobile devices. So if you're managing iOS, Android devices, or you want to manage them, Intune is your platform for that. It will, on the Apple comparison, if you're using Jamf or Mosel, it's kind of the same thing as that. You'll have your Apple School Manager set up, sync your devices through there to Intune, and manage them in a supervised state like you are with those platforms. And Intune will also support bring your own devices. The big thing with Microsoft in the cloud is security, who's accessing things and why are they accessing things. It doesn't really matter what they're accessing it from, but you want to be able to control the data and the access of that device. So that's where policies will come in, controlling who's accessing it, what's allowed to access it. Part of that happens in Entra, some of that happens in Intune. Again, I'll go into more detail on that, but just as a high level, that's how the management's happening. Intune will push out software, so you can push out applications to Windows devices, iOS, Apple, there as well. It supports your volume licensing token if you're doing that. Intune is a very robust platform for managing your devices and getting that more modern picture of how things should look. So again, if you have a lot of device objects that have synced from your domain, going into Entra, when all those devices from Entra go into Intune, you'll have a lot of extra noise there. You'll have a lot of devices showing as non-compliant. They aren't getting policies, they aren't checking in, and it's going to look pretty messy until you get them all cleaned up and deleted out of there. And having that clean base and flowing up is important here. I did touch on this briefly, but there's a few different layers with Intune. You'll have your enrollment policies. So you'll have enrollment policies will be how when the device is coming into Intune, what configuration settings are you pushing down onto it at the start. So with Windows, this is where Autopilot comes in. Autopilot is a service. It's kind of like setting up Chromebooks with Google. It allows you to give the device to the end user. They sign in with their school or work email address, and it attaches and installs everything that you have set up with Intune. It's kind of like a zero-touch deployment model. So that's a configuration policy. iOS and Apple have the same thing. You'll have an enrollment or configuration policy for the device coming in, and then that goes into compliance policies. So you'll have, I guess actually that's on the next slide. I'll talk about that. And then, yeah, profile management is in there too. So you'll have different configuration or sorry, device profiles that you'll push out. And that's kind of more matches with group policy objects. Setting up those profiles to the different devices that you have. And that's all managed through typically security groups. And again, I'll go more in depth on that. And then, yeah, so that's like alluded to monitoring and reporting with Intune. So you'll have compliance monitoring. So again, like if you're requiring BitLocker encryption on your devices, you'll be able to monitor what devices are actually encrypted, which ones are failing and need to be looked at. You can monitor compliance to Windows versions, like if you want to make sure everything is on Windows 11 23H2, at absolute minimum. You'll be able to control that through here. And if a device falls out of compliance, you'll see that and you'll be able to investigate why, what's happening. And then, yeah, you can do reporting features with that to get reports on pretty much anything you want. And we'll go into that a little bit more here. Defender for Endpoint, I consider the top of the pyramid. This is where Microsoft's their whole I just call it the pyramid again, flows up to the top. So this really encompasses everything below it. So all the way down to the device, Windows Defender is built into Windows 11. It's a little bit different than the Windows 10 version. It's got some more features built into it, some better capabilities, another reason to upgrade. But Defender for Endpoint is Microsoft's cloud management platform of that. Their actual Defender running on the PCs is the same, across the board there, but it just doesn't have that control and that management aspect you typically would see with other antiviruses. So this is how you modernize that and manage it. And again, so having the right amount of devices and proper devices come into Intune, I would suggest syncing those devices from Intune into Defender. That's the best way to get them over there and control those security policies and settings on the devices. So you'll be able to do proactive threat detection, advanced threat detection. It'll alert you, create incidents for you, really give you a lot of insight and control into your devices across your network. Microsoft does have EDR features along with Defender. And again, all of these, we haven't really touched on licenses yet, and maybe a little more at the end if there's no questions, but Microsoft has different levels to every service. So with Entra ID, there's a P1 and a P2 level. With Intune, there's P1, P2, and they have an Intune suite. Defender for Endpoint's the same thing. They have P1, P2, and P2 is what includes EDR capabilities. There's some attack surface reduction stuff in there. It'll get into managing vulnerabilities, making sure, if there are new CVE vulnerabilities published, that it scans your devices for those vulnerabilities and it lets you know, like, hey, there was this vulnerability has a CVS score of 9.0 and you have 13 devices that are affected by this, and you'll know how to make sure those devices are getting that update that they need. So moving just quick to implementation and best practices, and I might, I guess, yeah, with Defender I mentioned, I think it's best to bring them in from Intune. There are other ways of getting devices into Defender for Endpoint. You can import them, I believe, through a group policy object to get them through there. Also running I think it just flips a registry key. So there's a PowerShell command to flip that key, and that'll import it and get the device into Defender. The reason why I recommend Intune is it's easier to control the policies and the settings that come along with that. Defender is great for configuring the alerting, what to look for, the security services, but the actual settings that need to be turned on the devices, it's a little bit easier to control and manage through Intune. So yeah, best practices, again, I might run through this really quick because I want to kind of get you guys into a demo and show you guys a little bit more and let you guys ask questions, kind of more specific to what you want to see. But really, again, yeah, looking at that hardware compatibility, making sure you figure out what you have, where it is, and if it's going to take that Windows 11 update, and having that plan in place. Start communicating with people, especially again if it's your I would say your power users, users that have a little more of a crucial role that their device plays. If it's a finance person, somebody that's really heavily using that device, you're going to want to work with them to create that deployment timeline and work through them with that to make sure all that compatibility is there that they need, and after the upgrade, working on any issues that they might have. That's what'll make you successful in getting that upgrade done. Again, yeah, training and support with, again, end users. Windows 11 navigation-wise, it's really easy to transition from Windows 10. It's not like people that were hopping from Windows 7 to Windows 10, or maybe you had Windows 8 sprinkled in there. It's not as bad. It's actually a really smooth transition. A lot of the navigation is the same. Some of the applications have been updated navigation-wise. The settings menu especially, that looks a bit different and things are in little different spots there, but your end users probably aren't in those a lot. And then, another thing to mention here, if I go back, support channels. So yeah, they're, again, making sure that you're on, and this is something you can control through Intune and Office 365 as well, as what support channel you're on or servicing channel, making sure, if Windows 24 H2 launched in October, maybe November, but they really delayed the push out and rollout of that because there's so many issues. So it's important to maybe block those service updates from applying, those feature updates from applying, and waiting until all those kinks are kind of worked out before you start pushing all your devices that way. So that's kind of an important thing to call out. And then that kind of goes along with the ongoing management. Security enhancements, security updates are released monthly, update Tuesday. Everybody probably knows about that. Nothing's really changed there with Windows 11. Everything that was handled update-wise with Windows 10 is the same for Windows 11. And the one thing that did change is the frequency of feature updates. Windows 10, I believe, had a twice a year cadence on that. So you had, Windows 10 22H2 was the last version they released, and Windows 11 24H2 is the most recent one, and the one before that was 23H2, and again 22H2. So they're more on that year cadence for those feature updates now. But as far as just normal security enhancements, that's just the update Tuesday. So I'm going to kind of get out of my slideshow and get into a little bit of what things actually look like. So I have a demo tenant here running, and there's some users baked in there, and some there's no devices though, so it's going to look a little plain there, but it'll give you a good sense of how the flow of everything looks and how it where you can manage things and set things. So the normal Microsoft Admin Center is where you always start, admin.microsoft.com. And down on the left here, if you aren't familiar with the direct web links yet, you can just launch your admin centers from here. So the identity is what Entra is. So you can click on here to launch that. The web link is entra.microsoft.com. Microsoft Intune is here. So again, that's intune.microsoft.com. And then the security admin center is where Defender for Endpoint lives. And that's security.microsoft.com. So I'll just launch identity here and let that open. And then it launches your identity dashboard. So again, I can spend hours showing you guys everything in here and what's important and what you need to do, best practices and whatnot. But just kind of an overview on just the management of it. All your users will show up here on the left-hand side, where they are coming from. If it's an on-premise sync, if you have AD Connect running, it'll show whether the user's coming from there. If it's a cloud-only user, that value is no. And then one of the nice things that you can do, like I was talking about the modernization earlier, is you can see the logs. Actually, I'm going to pick the admin user because that'll actually have some data on it. System administrator. So if I look at sign-in logs, it might take a second for this to load, but unlike Active Directory, I can see exactly the date and time that the authentication request came in. Again, I'm filtering down by the user here, so that's the user. The application that they're authenticating into, the status of that, whether it was successful or if it failed, the IP address it was coming from, the location Microsoft identified for that. Conditional access is their MFA service, so that's where your second authentication form will come in. So if you have the Microsoft Authenticator app on your phone, there's other ways of doing that. And then when the authentication or the sign-in came in, what the authentication requirement was. So if you do have MFA enabled and you're seeing a bunch of single factor authentication requirements, you might want to look at why it's not forced in MFA. But this is really nice. It gives you a lot of granular details as far as what's happening. Again, yeah, where it's coming from, and policies that you have applying in for that access. So yeah, when something goes wrong, it's a lot easier to figure out why, how that happened, where it came from, what you need to do to fix it. So again, yeah, every user sign-in is logged in this way, and you can change that based off of the time frame you want to look at. And devices are kind of handled the same way. One thing you can look at, so when you go into devices, to just look at overview, you'll have these cards here for stale devices, unmanaged devices. These are typically going to be the devices that are registered in Entra ID, which just means that somebody signed in with their work or school account into a Microsoft application. So it could have been Office, it could have been syncing OneDrive to the device, signing into the browser with their account. That'll register the device in Entra, but they can become obsolete or stale. So you can go in here, filter by that, and just delete everything that's in there. There's no harm in removing a registered device. Really what'll happen is if they actually do use the device again, they just have to authenticate again. It won't, if there's any cookies or login saved or session stored, whatever you're doing, it's not going to honor that and require you to re-authenticate with your account. So there could be a lot of cleanup there, but when you click on all devices, that's where it'll show you that information. So again, it'll have the device, the host name of the device, the operating system, the version, the join type will be the three things we are talking about. It'll be Entra ID joined, it'll be registered, or it'll be hybrid, which means it's coming from your Active Directory and you're going to be managing it in the cloud. And then again, some other settings that are kind of tied to Intune. That's where the MDM and compliance columns come in. And groups the same way. If you're syncing from Active Directory, all of your security groups will show up in here. All of your groups that are created through Teams, just Microsoft 365 groups you can set up will show up in here. This is an education tenant, so there's just some baked in groups created for Teams. But yeah, everything will show up in here. When we're working in Intune, all of your policies are going to be applied through security groups. So if you don't have security groups created for your devices, I'd recommend doing that in the cloud. The group type, you just make sure security and not Microsoft 365. You give it a group name. And when you assign members to the group, you can click on devices here and then click on devices here, search for devices you want to add into that group. If you have the proper license, you can create dynamic device or dynamic user groups. So if you're pulling in, again, this is easiest coming from Active Directory, you can set those groups based off of a flag. That might be department on the object. It might be the location of the device. There's formulas you can set and go through that. So it'll update the device group membership for you. So again, you can do that with users and devices, but with Intune, typically you're going to be assigning based off of devices. So we're going to come down to protection here. again, I'll just call out a couple things. Conditional access is where you'll create MFA policies for requiring multi-factor authentication. This is access into your account, access into your resources and your data that are in 365. And risky activities is another one I'd recommend that you monitor regardless of what license you have and what you're using. And this is it's kind of a formula Microsoft has put together for identifying users that might be compromised. And that's usually indicated by sign-ins that are from IP addresses that aren't normal. It can be locations that are overseas. It can be a pattern based off of sign-in. So like if a user is signing in from an IP address identified in Moorhead, Minnesota, and then an hour later they're signing in from an IP address in Florida, or any other states, if that happens enough, it's going to flag it as risky. And then you can come in here, see the risky users that are flagged, and then just look into why that is. You'll go back into the user, look at their sign-ins. If you go down to risk detections here, it'll tell you the events that it found that it deemed risky. It's not always a sign-in. Sometimes it's another means. But I recommend you watch this, especially if you're a school district and you're not assigning MFA to student accounts. That's a little bit hard to do, I understand. So watching the risk detections and the risky users to make sure, like if a student account does get compromised, you can hop in here, reset the password right away, and get that fixed. So that's just a quick overview of Entra. Again, if you have specific questions that you're interested in, pop them in the chat. I'm going to move on to Intune quick here. And while that loads, so with getting devices into Intune, again, that's going to vary depending on what the device is. You can set devices to sync from Entra. I don't know why it's taking so long to load. Let's try it. Just try going there. So devices, yeah, from Entra will automatically sync up here if you tell them to. That's how you get your Windows devices in here. And again, Apple, iOS, again, it's best to bring those devices in from Apple School Manager, Apple Business Manager, and let that be the source of where the device is. And then once they're in Intune, you'll be able to manage them the way you want to manage them, control remotely wiping the devices. You can, again, assign those policies like group policy objects to control settings on the devices. You'll be given a dashboard and you can look at, what's coming in for enrollment, what devices aren't taking your configuration policies, making sure all your applications are being pushed out properly. Typically when you do work in here, this devices tab is where most everything is. That's what separates out all the settings based off of what operating system you're working with, and the devices with there. So if we click on Windows here, you'll see there's no devices, but the first thing you always want to do is onboard the device. So when you come into enrollment here, you can configure that automatic enrollment coming from, it should say Entra ID. Azure Active Directory is what Entra ID used to be. They renamed it. There's still a few different spots where that lives, but this is where you'll create those enrollment options. And then if there's any restrictions or other ways of limiting what you want to enroll, you'll do that in here. And again, this is where autopilot will live. That's where the settings for that are. And I kind of touched on that briefly prior, but um, yeah, this is where you'll enroll those devices. Same thing with the iPad iOS. There's an enrollment section here, and you'll need to create an enrollment profile. Oh, this is grayed out because I don't have my push certificate installed in here. Uh, are we okay on questions, Josh? Do I need to pause?
Yeah, no, nothing
Okay.
has come through in a little bit, so you're good to
Yeah.
go.
Um, so yeah, just running through this. So again, yeah, endpoint security is kind of where the tie starts coming in with MDE or Defender for Endpoint. This is where you'll configure your policies for synchronizing that to Defender for Endpoint, moving your devices over there. And then these are the areas where you'll create policies to control the settings on the devices themselves. What I'd recommend doing is looking at the security baselines. So these are collections of settings related to security for different applications or services on the devices. So it's kind of hard to know what you all should set or what you want to set. So this is a good collection of what Microsoft suggests that you should do. So there's a security baseline for Windows 10. So that's just setting things with inside the, or Windows 10 or later, sorry, setting things with inside the operating system and controlling that. There's a Defender for Endpoint Security baseline. So this is going to be settings that are more specific to Windows Defender and services attached to that. They have a security baseline for Microsoft Edge. And then if you're using their 365 apps for enterprise, there's a baseline for that as well. So I recommend looking at those, especially if you're just starting out. If you've already started out and you have your own configuration profile set up, there could be some overlap that you have in the settings, and your devices will get marked non-compliant because there's a settings conflict. And to figure out what that is, when you go into the device and you go under the compliance tab, there you click on the policy that's not compliant, and it'll tell you there what isn't compliant and where the policy is coming from. So you'll have to decide to remove it from your custom configured one or keep it in the baseline. So I'd recommend looking at that. And then Defender for Endpoint. In the Microsoft security side of things, there's a lot in here. There's Defender for Cloud is in this admin center, Defender for Endpoint, Defender for Identity. They have really condensed a lot of things up in here. If you're running Exchange Online email services, your settings for your spam filter and all that's in here too. There's a lot. When Intune starts adding devices in here for Defender, you'll start seeing them show up under assets here. And then you'll start getting some more options in here for setting up different things for those endpoints. You'll start getting vulnerability management recommendations and a dashboard. And again, the configuration of the settings and the endpoint is all handled through Intune, so you aren't going to be setting that up in here. It's just going to be your alerting, if you want to set up some remediation, your alerts will show up here under investigation and response, alerts, incidents. So when something does show up, you'll be able to come in here and look at what happened. So again, a lot of this really depends on how well or how much this functions depends on your license level and how you have it set up. So we're kind of running out of time here. So what else? I'll drop my email in the chat here. If you have any specific questions or follow-up items you want to ask, feel free to reach out to me. Again, I'm very familiar with how all this happens. I should promote this really quick. I run a kind of like an open office hours meeting every Monday at noon Central Time, where people just hop in and ask questions about 365 and modernization. And I'll run through different news items or features I've run across, just things I've run across. I guess there's Microsoft related. So I should find the registration for that here and send that over to the chat here.
I got it, Lucas. I threw.
Got it.
Yep, I threw
Perfect.
that
Perfect.
standing kind of registration link in.
Yeah, so if you register for that, and you'll get added to the meeting cadence. But yeah, if there's anything specific, again, join that call every Monday and be happy to help with whatever it is you have. But yeah, we're a couple minutes over. I just want to thank everybody for coming. And again, yeah, there's so much to talk about here. It's so hard to cover everything. But really, this is the way Microsoft is moving. All their resources, everything they're doing is being pushed up into cloud services. They're releasing less and less updates and features to on-premise services, whether that's Windows Server or Office. A lot less is happening there. It's all being cloud connected. So you really want to make sure you're modernizing everything and you're keeping up with that. And that'll help you in your security journey and making sure everything is, you can take care of everything you need to take care of, and everything that's happening is spotted and you're able to remediate and make sure things don't happen. So again, yeah, please reach out. The recording will be on YouTube, as Josh mentioned, after a bit, and hope to see you on this coming Monday for my Microsoft Mondays call. So Dennis asked, will there be future sessions in each section to go a little deeper? That is something that is on our radar. Again, that's kind of what I reserve the Microsoft Mondays for. If there's something that specifically you're wondering what the best way to handle it is, like that could be setting things with Intune, onboarding things to Intune, what to configure with Entra. I'll run through things there like as I need to, but yeah, we will do more webinars more in depth with each service. So be on the lookout for that. Yep. All right, I think that looks like it. All right, well, yeah, everybody have a good rest of the week, and thanks for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.